I love Honkai. I think it's no secret as to why Honkai is on my favorite list for games ever. I mean, just look at all these videos. Honkai, made by MiHoYo, or as you guys know them, that company that copied Genshin Impact. So let's see what Honkai offers, its story, and of course, the gameplay. Oh my god, the gameplay. Now, Honkai was released globally in 2018, but the game has actually been released 2 years prior in China in 2016. Now, I know what you're gonna say, Eve, what about that other Honkai Gun Girls game? And well,
let's not talk about it.
So Honkai uses a total of 16 gigabytes worth of storage on Android, making it a beefy girl in terms of storage, unless you're on PC. Graphically, it is very much pretty to this day. It's amazing just how detailed the girls look in the game. But who cares about the graphics? What about the gameplay and the story? How does that hold up? Is it still good and fun? It's good, it's fast, it's flashy, and it's very fun. Now each character has their own style when it comes to combat, and from there it's down to their weapon type. So you have gun kata for Kiana, to that fast scythe action a la Ruby style for Rita, to the more combo based hand-to-hand combat for Fuhua that I to this day still have not mastered. This is also accompanied with the 4 open world maps, 2 of which are freeform open combat a la Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, with their own characters and stories for those maps. While the open world maps aren't as expansive or as open as Genshin Impact, it essentially checks what's required to be open world, like the bare minimum. Now let's talk story, and keep in mind there is a lot. In fact, entire arcs are just based on characters talking and interacting with each other. I'd argue to say there is more talking here than in Persona 5, and if you've played Persona 5, then that should pretty much tell you how much talking there is. Each arc is just as interesting as the last, and it feels like the stakes are just higher and higher from the Harakia Void arc to the latest Koloston arc. There's just so much content in between to keep you occupied for quite a while. In fact, the newest update to the Elysium realm added a whole bunch of new story, as well as a post-Honkai Odyssey story set 8 years after the ending of Honkai Impact 3rd, even though the story hasn't ended yet, but you know, forget about that part. There's even special chapters called Chronicles that detail characters in funny skits, or at times very important sub-arcs towards that main character's development, which shows why they act the way that they act or do the things that they do. In fact, this whole challenge tab has 6 options to choose from in terms of gameplay. Often the question I see asked from people is, can I play Honkai Impact right now? Or is now the time to start? The answer is yes. Yes, you very much can. If you start right now, you will be able to catch up and enjoy it right alongside veteran fans of the game. However, there is a certain order you have to follow. I'm gonna leave a link to it, but essentially there's the 3 main phases, which is essentially the main story of Honkai, then the Chronicle stories, then a post-Honkai Odyssey, and you should do the Elysium realm as last because that will spoil so much in terms of story for you. Now I know I'm going to get 2 questions when it comes to Honkai Impact. And one of them is gonna be, do I need to play Honkai Gun Girls? And is it required to know Honkai lore to enjoy Genshin Impact to its fullest? Let's start off with the first, Honkai Gun Girls. No, you do not need to know anything about Honkai Gun Girls to enjoy Honkai 3rd. In fact, you might actually get a little bit spoiled with the story in Honkai Gun Girls with a certain character or characters. While Gun Girls and Honkai Honkai are connected by the same characters and even them sharing the same personalities, that's as far as the connections go. There's, and big spoiler here, for Honkai Gun Girls, the ending goes off on a pretty somber, almost nightmarish send-off, with the main villain essentially killing off every single main character. Seely gone, Himiko, yep, she's dead. Even our lovable Terry is killed off in this final scene, with Mei being the last to die. The chapter's ending, and I'm not lying to you, is legit called "See You in the Next World," essentially saying, hey, you want to know what happens next? Go play Honkai 3rd. Not only that, but it's essentially impossible right now to play Honkai Gun Girl as of this review for global players. The game was closed recently due to low player count, even though the game is very much alive in China, so I'm actually a bit confused here, and if somebody knows, please put it down in the comments because I'm really curious. From what I understand, it mostly has to do with translation errors throughout the whole game for global players to the point where it's too much effort to fix, I think? But I'm not really sure, but regardless, Honkai Impact 3rd does a really good job itself of explaining the previous era stuff and the world in which Kevin and the Fire Moths came out of, but that stuff isn't really important till much later in the story. So yeah, you can see why I'm saying you don't need to know anything about Gun Girls to enjoy it, but I'll leave a link for those that are interested of the whole main story. And another thing is, Honkai Gun Girls is still getting updated to this day in China, so I don't see a reason to know the Honkai Gun Girls lore, but regardless. And finally, Genshins Connections to Honkais. Now, there is a ton of videos of theories that do a much better job than what I'm about to say, but if you want to watch those, go ahead. But basically, there is cameos, and I gotta say, a ton of cameos and references to Honkai, but you won't gain much in terms of Genshin lore or Celestia secrets. Ooh. This character, Raiden Shogun, or Ball, or Makoto, or Ai, or whatever she's calling herself like today, is not, and I repeat, is not Mei Raiden. These two are completely different individuals. They may share the same face and color, but that's about it. They have completely different goals, ideals, and even love interests, if Ball even has a love interest. In fact, the only true connection I can see is within the manga of Honkai. There's a chapter where Su talks about the Ark, a previous era ship used to find another planet for when Earth was eventually destroyed by the Hierarchy of End. And on the Ark are two twins, which could be Aether and Lumine. But do you see how much I'm stretching this? And before you ask, no, this isn't Celestia, and no, this isn't the Primogem lady. Even though they kind of look the same, in fact, the connections between Honkai and Genshin is so big in terms of theories that it would require its own video, as I would have to explain the imaginary tree, the imaginary space, the quantum realm, and that right there is just a whole other can of worms. So there is no connection, guys. This isn't Celestia. This is within the Elysium realm, and this lady is not, she's not the Primogem lady. This is another flame chaser. I wish this was Celestia, and I wish this was the Primogem lady, but the only other connection I can think of is there was a cutscene that showed Dvalin, the Venti's dragon, I believe. So maybe there's your connection, but nah, I not much. That's not to say it's all good, and much like Genshin, yes, Honkai has gacha. The game is pretty generous, however, when it comes to handling out crystals daily, so you can get some of the Valkyries basically without spending a dime. But much like Genshin, unless you pay up, you're not getting all of them, and you're definitely not getting all of the weapons or the stigmatas. I mean, I to this day still cannot get Callan's blood pistols, which is annoying and definitely a gripe I have with the game. If there's a certain weapon you want, you won't get it unless you just are patient or farm. In total, there's 65 Valkyries to play as in the current 5.6 patch, with 2 more being added in the next 5.7 patch. Unless you're one of the players that was around during the Evangelion arc, which in that case, there's 66. And you can get many of these by just farming or gacha pulling your wallet. Valkyries are ranked from B, A, and S, and if I don't mention SS and triple S is because those are for the whales. I don't have any triple S of Valkyries aside from the free-to-play ones you get at the start of the game, and now I'm not sure what counts as good and bad gacha when it comes to these type of games. In fact, you're just gonna be playing the game for the story, as it gives you Valkyries to play with. You obviously don't get to keep them, but for that chapter you get to use whatever S rank Valkyrie the game wants you to use. The game knows not all players are going to gacha their wallets, so thankfully it does not lock story content behind a paywall. You don't need any S rank Valkyries unless you're doing the competitive Q Singularis where you go head to head with other players, because that's where the whales hang out. And look, when it comes to meta, I could really care less about it. I don't care about it in Genshin, and I definitely don't care about it in Honkai, but it is there in Honkai, and for those that like it, go right ahead. It's pretty cool to see how your leaderboards sort of match up and you can completely wipe the floor with other players. Honkai also includes a co-op raid mode with some stories sprinkled in there. Now, I don't know if it's my connection or what, but for some reason, nobody plays the co-op within America, which is strange to me considering there is quite a bit of active players within America, like a ton. I don't know how many, but each room shows how many players they're in, and sometimes 2 rooms have well over 1,000 players. So it could be either 2 reasons for me. Either I'm in an area that's excluded for some reason, which is weird because Washington, I mean, come on, anime is everywhere in this place. Or everyone in the Honkai community just hates co-op, which shame on you. Why? It's really fun. Why? With that said, I love Honkai Impact. From its story to its gameplay, MiHoYo has very much delivered an outstanding and beautiful game. And now that it's 2020 with the newest Elysium Realm update, Honkai is very much in a perfect spot for newcomers, with plenty of Valkyries to unlock, tons of weapons to use, and a bajillion story contents that you will not run out of. Honkai Impact is available on MiHoYo's website as well as on Steam. If you already have a Genshin account, you could just log in with that, I believe, and you could just get started today. It's really fun. I recommend downloading it on Steam, as it's much easier to manage your games that way, or you could just go to MiHoYo's website and download the game from there. If you have a phone, it is available on Android and iOS, so honestly, you can play this game wherever, you know, as long as you have a phone or a computer. The requirements aren't high for computers. For phones, Androids, if you want a fluid experience, I think an Snapdragon 845 would do. I'm not really sure, but it's good. You know, if you can run Android games, you more than likely can run Honkai just fine. I very much recommend you to play just through the story, just to see the story of Kiana and her friends, see how they grow and develop, because the story is truly good. Anyways, I've been ChipCube, and now if you'll excuse me, I've got a VR chat review to make, because that game is a whole other experience. Now go on and watch the Ellen Palanis video, a backstory of Honkai Impact's most biggest clown ever.